If there was nothing before the Big Bang, how in the world did everything in the universe come into being? Creation myths aim to answer that very question, like the Enuma Elish. But let's get even more specific. How in the world were humans created? By complete accident? By God? According to some folks, both answers would be wrong. To them, humans were genetically engineered by a race of extraterrestrials called the Anunnaki. But who exactly were they, and where did they come from? I'll attempt to answer all of these questions and many more in today's video, so don't go anywhere because you won't want to miss this. Mesopotamian creation myths, the Enuma Elish. The Enuma Elish is the Babylonian epic of creation, and it's one of the most famous creation myths from ancient Mesopotamia. It's a complicated narrative that explains how the world and every living thing within it, animals, plants, etc., puffed into existence. It tells the fascinating story of a battle that took place at the beginning of time between deities, as well as the creation of the universe out of chaos. So, how does the story go? It's quite the tale, so get ready for a wild ride. The Enuma Elish is written between 7 tablets that date all the way back to the 18th century BC, nearly 3,000 years ago. It was found within the ruins of an ancient city called Nineveh. The text itself is written in the language of ancient Mesopotamia, Akkadian. In terms of world records, this thing almost takes the cake, as it's considered to be one of the oldest creation myths known to man. Okay, now let's get into the good stuff, starting with a primordial battle. According to the Enuma Elish, one of the first beings to exist was Tiamat. She was the personification of salt water and is known in Babylonian texts as a chaotic sea goddess. She's depicted as a monstrous dragon or a giant serpent in ancient descriptions, being portrayed as a terrifying force of disorder and chaos. So naturally a hero arises to bring balance to things, and in this story he's called Marduk. Marduk is described as a heroic and powerful god who stands opposed to Tiamat and her negative forces. Marduk challenges Tiamat and defeats her, bringing order to the universe. They're literally yin and yang, reflecting the eternal struggle between disorder and balance in all things. But does the Enuma Elish end there? Nope. After Tiamat is defeated, Marduk uses her body to shape the world. How metal is that? He splits her in two and uses one half to shape the heavens and the other half to form the earth. Marduk uses the water gushing from Tiamat's eyes to create the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, and he calls on other deities to help govern the cosmos. By doing so, he establishes a more ordered and structured universe out of the chaos that Tiamat had created. Mesopotamian religious beliefs, as well as literature that was written later on, was profoundly influenced by the Enuma Elish. During the Babylonian New Year festival called Akitu, the epic was recited to reaffirm the supreme power of the Babylonian gods and to celebrate the renewal of the cosmos. The epic even influenced other creation myths in the region, helping to share how subsequent civilizations viewed the world and its origins. The rise of Marduk. Now that I've introduced you to Marduk, I want to go a little more in depth into who exactly he was. Based on ancient Babylonian records, Marduk was an ancient god who rose from humble beginnings. Marduk was the son of Ea, also known as Enki, the Sumerian god of wisdom. The Babylonians, who came after the Sumerians, adopted and adapted Sumerian culture and mythology, which is where Marduk's story begins. So, who exactly was Marduk? He was a warrior god who lived in Babylon, a bustling city on the banks of the Euphrates River. As Babylon grew in importance and power, so did Marduk's reputation. He wasn't just any god. He was called the Great Lord, the Lord of Heaven and Earth. Marduk's rise to power is legendary, as he took on the roles of many other Sumerian deities. His wisdom was his greatest strength, and he used it to help the good and punish the wicked. And according to some accounts, he was depicted as having extra ears, eyes, or heads. He also supposedly had power over the weather and could control the wind. Now let's talk about his most famous adventure, the creation of the universe. The story starts with Tiamat, the goddess of salt water, and her mate Apsu, the god of fresh water. Together, they created several generations of younger gods. These younger gods became a nuisance, and Apsu decided to get rid of them. But clever Ea, a descendant of Tiamat and Apsu, got wind of the plan and killed Apsu first, taking his place. This enraged Tiamat, who waged war against the other gods. The gods then turned to Ea's son Marduk and promised him kingship if he could defeat Tiamat. So Marduk faced Tiamat's army of dragons and monsters led by the god Kingu. With some clever tactics, he commanded the wind to inflate Tiamat like a balloon, and then shot an arrow that split her in two. And bada boom, bada bing, Marduk emerged victorious. You know what happened next. With Tiamat's body, Marduk created the heavens and the earth. And to top it off, he used Kingu's blood to create humans to serve the gods. I mean, no wonder the Babylonians thought so highly of him. Based on this story, they literally wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for him. Marduk's influence didn't stop there. He became the patron deity of Babylonia, overshadowing even the great gods Ea and Anu. His association with Mars, symbolized by the snake and the dragon, highlighted his mastery over life and genetic engineering skills. When the Amorites conquered Babylonia, they spread Marduk's worship to Assyria, making him the chief god across the entire empire. By the time of Nebuchadnezzar I, Marduk's temples dotted the land, solidifying his place as the supreme ruler of gods and men. In short, Marduk's rise from a warrior god to the king of the gods is a tale of wisdom, bravery, and a bit of divine intervention. It's no surprise he held such an esteemed place in ancient Mesopotamian mythology, leading the Anunnaki and shaping the very fabric of the universe as the Babylonians knew it. And now for number 8, but first it's shout-out time. I wanted to give a big thank you to Edwin Pina and Mr. Vinny Boy for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. Secrets of the Sumerian King List. There's an ancient text that seems to spill all the beans about the secrets of the past. It's called the Sumerian King List, and it basically claims that the first kings to rule over ancient Sumer were aliens. Yep, you heard me. Listen to this and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. The Sumerian King List is a 4,000-year-old manuscript that records the names, reign lengths, and locations of kings from Sumer and neighboring dynasties. It's like the ultimate royal family tree, but with a twist. To mainstream researchers, the list mixes mythical rulers with real historical ones. But what if that's not the case at all? What if it tells the truth about the past and how mankind was influenced by extraterrestrials? The first fragment of this list was found in the early 1900s by Herman Hilprecht at the ancient site of Nippur. Since then, archaeologists have found at least 18 other copies, none exactly the same, but all derived from one ideal account. The most famous and complete version is the Veld Blundell prism, an 8-inch high cuneiform tablet that's housed in the Ashmolean Museum. It's like the ancient equivalent of having multiple editions of the same blockbuster novel, but each with slightly different endings. The list starts with the notion that kingship descended from heaven. And what did ancient people call space or the cosmos? Yep, heaven or the heavens. The Sumerians believed that their kingship was a divine gift. The earliest kings supposedly reigned for tens of thousands of years. For instance, a king named Alulim ruled for 28,800 years, and another called Al-Aljar reigned for 36,000 years. Now, if you're thinking, how did these guys live that long? Did they have access to some ancient anti-aging cream? You're not alone. Even the experts are still scratching their heads over this one. The list mentions 8 kings who ruled before a great flood, similar to the one in the biblical story of Noah. Surprise, surprise. And after the flood, kings had much shorter, more realistic reigns. So what's the deal with these super long reigns? Some say they're just symbolic, reflecting the importance of these early rulers. But others believe that these kings were real but later mythologized. Now here's where things get really interesting. The Sumerian king list has striking similarities with the Bible. Both mention a great flood, and both show a pattern of long lifespans before the flood and shorter ones after. Ask yourself this: why did the Sumerians mix myths with history? Why did they describe their kings as ruling for thousands of years, if that wasn't really the case? And why does the list have so many similarities with the book of Genesis? These questions still baffle scholars today. Maybe it's just one of those ancient mysteries that keeps us guessing, like how did the Egyptians really build the pyramids? No, it wasn't aliens. Or was it? The Sumerian king list is a priceless artifact that connects us to one of the earliest known civilizations. It either tells the craziest story ever told, proving that humans have always been influenced by aliens, or it's a fabricated tale that blends history and mythology. But if it's the latter, what's the point? Let me know what you think down below. The origin of human beings. The first human beings were created in ancient Mesopotamia in the land of Sumer, according to ancient Sumerian texts. And spoiler alert, the story involves gods, clay, and a bit of sibling rivalry. Sumer, flourishing around 4500 BC in what is now Iraq, was home to an advanced civilization. It was a place with its own language, writing system, architecture, arts, astronomy, and even mathematics. Their religion was a bit like a celestial soap opera, with hundreds of gods each watching over different cities. Humans and gods used to live together, but humans had to do all the hard work, like mining and building. It doesn't seem fair, does it? Well, before humans were ever created, it was the gods doing all the work, at least according to ancient texts. The Sumerian creation myth is one of the earliest known written stories about how everything started. Found on a tablet in Nibiru, just like the Sumerian king list, the tale begins with a rather poetic description of a nameless heaven and earth, and chaos in the form of the goddess Tiamat. There were no gods yet, just swirling waters of Tiamat, the embodiment of chaos. Then, boom, gods started popping up like daisies in spring. This myth is similar to the Enuma Elish, but with slight differences. The gods were put to work immediately, but eventually the gods got tired of their endless labor. They were working hard and not loving it. The text says, when the gods like men bore the work and suffered the toil of the gods was great, the work was heavy, the distress was much. So they decided it was time for a change, like workers forming a union but with more divine drama. And this is where humanity comes onto the scene. Anu, the top god, decided to create humans to do the heavy lifting. His son Enki, or Ea, came up with the plan, and with his half-sister Ninki, created humans from the body and blood of a god who had been sacrificed, mixed with clay. So humans were apparently made from divine goo and a bit of dirt. This is a totally different story than what Babylonian records suggest, as Marduk is not mentioned at all in the creation of humans. But something should stand out to you there. It says humans were created from the blood and body of a god. Does that make you think of the Eucharist? You know, the ritual where various religious sects symbolically consume the body and blood of Christ by eating bread and wine. Could this just be a coincidence? Anywho. The texts claim that the first human was created in Eden, which in Sumerian means flat terrain. Think of it as the Garden of the Gods, nestled somewhere between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The name Eden, of course, ties the story to the Bible and Adam and Eve, who were said to be created in the Garden of Eden. Another coincidence? At first, humans couldn't reproduce on their own, so Enki and Ninki made some modifications. And voila! Adapa, the first fully functional human, was born. But the story wouldn't be complete without a little family drama now, would it? Enki's brother Enlil wasn't too happy about humans. He became humanity's adversary, and conflict among the gods ensued. Adapa, with Enki's help, got a chance to meet Anu, the chief god. Anu offered Adapa the bread and water of life, which would have made him immortal. However, Adapa, not realizing what it was, refused the offer and missed his chance to become a divine being. Whoops. Can you blame him though? I mean, this guy was just created like Frankenstein. How could he have possibly understood a riddle like that? Maybe they should have been a little more direct with him. As you can see by now, the Sumerian creation story has some eyebrow-raising similarities to the biblical tale of Adam and Eve. Both feature a primeval paradise, a noteworthy act of creation, and an important moment involving divine food or drink. Adam and Eve with the apple and Adapa with the bread and water of life. But unlike Adam and Eve's story with forbidden fruit, Adapa's tale involves him unknowingly rejecting immortality. This creation myth is important because it's one of the oldest written stories we have. It gives us a peek into the religious, political, and cultural life of ancient Mesopotamia. Plus, it's a reminder that humans have always loved a good origin story, especially when it's filled with drama, gods, and a bit of divine clay. But here's a curveball for you. What if the so-called gods in this story weren't gods at all in the traditional sense? What if they were actually aliens? More specifically, the Anunnaki, the gods of ancient Sumer. For the longest time, people have wondered if humans got a little help from aliens to kickstart civilization. So let's dive into the story of the Anunnaki, the ancient gods of Sumer, who some believe were actually extraterrestrial visitors. Who exactly were the Anunnaki? Well, they were the gods worshipped by the Sumerians who lived in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq and Iran, between 4500 and 1750 BC. These gods had wings, wore horned caps, and were believed to control humanity's destiny. You can think of them as the original superheroes of ancient times. Honestly, they share similarities with both angels and demons. And here's where things get super interesting and perhaps a bit wacky. Some theorists claim that the Anunnaki weren't just gods but aliens from a distant planet called Nibiru. More on that coming up. According to Zecharia Sitchin, who wrote The 12th Planet in 1976, these aliens came to Earth about 500,000 years ago in search of gold. Why gold? Apparently the Anunnaki needed gold in order to repair their planet's atmosphere. They were literally cosmic gold diggers. The Sumerians were super advanced for their time. They invented the plow, developed one of the earliest writing systems called cuneiform, and even created the method of keeping time that we still use today. But the question is, did they do it all alone? According to the Sumerians, their advancements were all thanks to the Anunnaki. Sitchin believed that these gods were aliens who genetically engineered humans to mine gold for them. And if you remember, that's pretty similar to what's written in the Sumerian creation myth, minus the part about the gold and the alien planet's destroyed atmosphere. The Sumerians highly revered the Anunnaki. They made statues, dressed them up, and even offered food to these so-called divine beings. They essentially threw a never-ending party for their gods. Most scholars, however, think that the ancient alien theory is, well, out of this world. They argue that Sitchin and his fellow theorists mistranslated or misunderstood the Sumerian texts. One critic even called shows promoting these ideas, aka ancient aliens, the most noxious sludge in television's bottomless chum bucket. Yikes. But despite the skepticism, the Sumerians did leave behind impressive records, and in no way, shape or form did they take credit for any of their advancements in science, agriculture, architecture, or mathematics. The Sumerians were always very adamant in crediting their gods for their achievements. A clay tablet found in 2015 shows that the Sumerians made accurate calculations for Jupiter's orbit 1400 years before Europeans did. They might have also invented trigonometry 1,000 years before the Greeks. But did they actually do anything themselves, or did the Anunnaki simply pass down their knowledge? It's a mystery that unfortunately may never be solved. So, did the Anunnaki really come from another planet? While there's no confirmed evidence, it's a fun theory to ponder. Ancient texts still hold many secrets, and as we continue to translate them, who knows what we'll discover. Were they gods, aliens, or just a product of human imagination? Let me know your thoughts on the Anunnaki in the comments below. Planet Nibiru. Is there a planet hiding at the edge of our solar system, far beyond Neptune? It doesn't sound like anything you were ever taught in school, does it? Some scientists believe that this Planet 9 might actually exist, and others think it may even be inhabited by aliens. This idea was first mentioned in 2016 by Caltech's dynamic duo Konstantin Batygin and Michael Brown. Planet 9 was theorized based on the weird behavior of icy bodies beyond Neptune known as trans-Neptunian objects. What's the deal with these TNOs? They're like the solar system's wild teenagers orbiting the sun at crazy angles and refusing to stay in line with the other planets. Batygin and Brown noticed that these TNOs have peculiar elongated orbits and seem to be clumped together. They proposed that a massive unseen planet's gravity is causing this cosmic chaos. But hold on, some skeptics argue that this clustering might just be an observational illusion. Yet our Caltech boys aren't backing down. In fact, they recently published a paper focusing on TNOs that don't cluster but still have odd orbits. So could Planet 9 be the culprit? Let's break it down. These rebellious TNOs spend most of their time way out in space, but occasionally swoop closer to the Sun, crossing Neptune's orbit. Not all TNOs do this. Take Pluto, for example, which stays relatively close to Neptune. The team only studies those that venture far enough to potentially feel Planet Nine's gravitational tug. Now, here's the fun part. There are two main scenarios for why these TNOs act so strangely. One idea is the galactic tide, the gravitational forces of the Milky Way nudging those objects closer to Neptune. The other, more exciting theory? Planet Nine is yanking them around like a cosmic puppet master. But Egan's simulations show that without Planet Nine, the galactic tide alone isn't strong enough to push TNOs into Neptune's territory. But with Planet Nine in the mix, suddenly it all makes sense. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some believe that this mysterious ninth planet could be the infamous Nibiru, home of the Anunnaki. According to ancient Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago to mine for gold. They supposedly came from a planet that takes 3,600 years to orbit the Sun, a time span eerily matching Nibiru's proposed orbit. So, is Planet Nine real? And could it be the legendary Nibiru? While mainstream science hasn't confirmed Planet Nine's existence yet, the evidence is piling up. Whether it's a planetary anomaly or the mythical home of the Anunnaki, one thing's for sure. Our solar system holds more mysteries than we can imagine. Evidence of ancient astronauts. Astronomer Carl Sagan pondered the possibility of ancient alien encounters, wondering if they might be recorded in humanity's earliest stories. One interesting tale from ancient Sumer involves Oannes, a fish-like being who supposedly brought wisdom to humanity. But before we dive into that fishy story, let's weigh the evidence. Listen to this and let me know what you think in the comments. The Milky Way, a cosmic buffet of habitable planets, has had plenty of time for intelligent species to explore. If aliens swung by Earth every 15,000 years or so, could they have left a mark? With writing only emerging around 3400 BC, any earlier visits might have gone unnoticed. But what if ancient texts actually documented these encounters? Sagan and his colleague Iosif Shklovsky explored this in their book called Intelligent Life in the Universe, suggesting that tales of otherworldly beings might not just be myths. They proposed that credible evidence would include descriptions of non-human intelligences, either that or advanced astronomical knowledge beyond what ancient peoples could grasp on their own. And in all honesty, the Sumerians and Babylonians seem to write about all of that. Now let's talk about Oannes. He was described as part fish, part man, and according to the Sumerians, Oannes taught them everything from letters to geometry. Similar beings called Apkallu continued this knowledge-sharing tradition. They weren't gods, just teachers from the sea based on Sumerian accounts. However, Sagan cautioned against jumping to conclusions. He acknowledged that ancient texts are often steeped in myth and folklore, making it tricky to separate fact from fiction. While Oannes' story is intriguing, it lacks the smoking gun needed to confirm ancient astronaut visits. So why do we love these stories? Well, they keep us curious and make us think differently about the past. Even Carl Sagan, a skeptic at heart, saw value in exploring such legends. He urged for careful scrutiny and critical analysis of ancient texts, leaving the door open to the possibility of ancient contact with extraterrestrial beings. But what do you believe? Is it possible that aliens like the Anunnaki visited Earth in the past and maybe even influenced early humans? Let me know. What did they look like? Some people think that reptilian beings rule the world from the shadows. But a theory that's even more wild is that those reptilian beings are actually the Anunnaki. Is there any truth to this? Until the mid-20th century, the Anunnaki were just ancient gods from Sumerian mythology. They were typically depicted as humans with animal features, not as extraterrestrial reptilians. The modern myth of the Anunnaki as space-traveling reptilian beings began with Erich von Däniken, an author with a flair for the dramatic and a bit of a criminal record. In his 1968 book, Chariots of the Gods, he proposed the idea of paleocontact. This is the idea that aliens visited Earth in ancient times and influenced human civilization. While von Däniken didn't specifically mention the Anunnaki or reptilian aliens, his idea set the stage for future speculations. In 1976, Zecharia Sitchin took von Däniken's concept further in his book, The 12th Planet. Sitchin, who taught himself ancient languages like Akkadian and Sumerian, believed mainstream scholars had misinterpreted ancient texts. He claimed that the Sumerian myths were literal historical accounts and introduced the idea of Nibiru. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki from Nibiru visited Earth 430,000 to 450,000 years ago, interbred with early humans, and kick-started civilization. Sitchin didn't describe them as reptilian, but he did weave a wild tale involving submarines and nuclear wars among the Anunnaki. So when did the Anunnaki turn reptilian? Well, we have David Icke, a former football player turned conspiracy theorist, to thank for that. In the early 1990s, Icke spiced up Sitchin's story by blending it with existing reptilian conspiracy theories. He claimed that the Anunnaki were actually shape-shifting reptilian aliens controlling humanity through a secret world order. Icke's ideas caught fire on the internet, cementing the image of the Anunnaki as sinister reptilian overlords in the minds of conspiracy enthusiasts worldwide. But what do the ancient texts and modern theories say about the Anunnaki's appearance? Ancient depictions of the Anunnaki often show them as giant humanoid figures, sometimes with animalistic traits. Sitchin's interpretations and Icke's theories made the story even more complicated and imaginative. According to these modern myths, the Anunnaki were much taller than humans, possibly up to 12 feet, and lived for thousands of years. They were said to have greenish-grey skin, 4 fingers per hand, and superhuman strength. Some even suggested they had unique genes granting them disease immunity and exceptional longevity. The debate continues about whether the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial overlords or just humans with unique DNA. Some believe the Anunnaki were actual aliens or a different human species who enhanced our DNA, boosting our intelligence. Others argue they were simply regular humans with some genetic quirks and impressive skills in agriculture and building civilizations. Despite the lack of solid evidence, the Anunnaki legend remains a fascinating blend of ancient mythology and modern conspiracy theories. But what do you think? What did the Anunnaki really look like? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The First Nuclear War, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Was there a nuclear war that took place in the ancient past? Maybe, and apparently the Anunnaki might have had something to do with it. Some believe that ancient cities like Sodom and Gomorrah weren't just biblical cautionary tales, but battlegrounds for high-stakes cosmic drama. The story of this alleged war begins with a bitter rivalry between two Anunnaki gods, Enki and Enlil. They were duking it out for control of Earth, and things got seriously out of hand. What were they beefing about, you may be asking? Well, Enki wanted to let humans reproduce freely, while Enlil was all about keeping a tight grip on our numbers. Tensions also eventually reached a boiling point over a key piece of Anunnaki real estate, the Sinai Peninsula spaceport. You can think of this place as the Kennedy Space Center for these ancient astronauts. Controlling it meant having the upper hand in launching missions back to their home planet, Nibiru. Then came along another player in this celestial chess game, someone who should sound familiar, Marduk, the hero of the Mesopotamian creation myth. Marduk also had his sights set on the spaceport, and Enlil's faction was determined not to let it fall into his hands. So what do you do when diplomacy fails? Well, you break out the nukes, of course. The Anunnaki decided to go full Michael Bay and deployed nuclear weapons to obliterate the spaceport. This was the ancient version of "if I can't have it, no one can." The resulting explosion not only leveled the site, but also unleashed a deadly evil wind. Or in other words, it unleashed a nuclear fallout that spread across the region. This catastrophic event didn't just wipe out the ancient cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, but also decimated much of the Sumerian civilization. But Marduk's city of Babylon? Well, Babylon was just fine. It turns out, Babylon was spared from the devastating effects of war. This was taken as a sign by the rest of the Anunnaki that Marduk was destined to be the top dog. So in the aftermath of this nuclear apocalypse, Marduk was crowned king and Babylon rose to prominence. How do we know any of this is true? We don't. In fact, this whole story should be taken with a grain of salt. This nuclear war took place according to Zecharia Sitchin and his interpretations of ancient texts. So whether you believe him or not is up to you. Most people call him a conspiracy theorist. But to be honest, a lot of conspiracy theories have been proven true, which only makes it more difficult to separate fact from fiction. The Emerald Tablet. Have you ever heard of the Emerald Tablet? It's a legendary tablet made of emerald or green stone, inscribed with the secrets of the universe. This is the fabled Tablet of Thoth, an ancient text that's almost poetic in its cryptic summary of early alchemical beliefs, forming the foundation of Western alchemy. The tablet's author is said to be Thoth, the Egyptian god of the moon, wisdom and writing. Thoth was depicted with a human body and the head of an ibis, and he was the patron of all arts involving writing. This included medicine, astronomy, and magic. When the Greeks encountered Thoth, they compared him with their own god Hermes. And in doing so, they created the figure Hermes Trismegistus, meaning Hermes thrice greatest. But how did Thoth come to be, and why is he important? Thoth's origins are shrouded in myth. One story claims that he was born from the seed of Horus, the god of order, and the forehead of Seth, the god of chaos. Another says he was self-created. If this was the case, he simply willed himself into existence. Regardless of his origins, Thoth was a key figure in Egyptian mythology, often depicted alongside the ibis, a bird associated with wisdom. According to Armando May, an expert on Egyptian art, Thoth divided his knowledge into 42 emerald plates, where he laid out the great scientific principles of the universe. After the fall of the gods, these tablets were hidden so that no human could find them. Only Thoth, upon his return, could recover the mysterious book. Just like Jesus said that he'll come back again, so did Thoth. So where did the Emerald Tablet come from? The origins of the Emerald Tablet are legendary and varied. Some say it was discovered in a tomb under a statue of Hermes in Tyana, an ancient city near Cappadocia, Turkey, clutched by Hermes Trismegistus himself. Others, however, claim it was written by Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve. Still, though, others believe it was part of the Ark of the Covenant, or that it came from the mythical city of Atlantis. A more scientific theory suggests that the tablet's text comes from an 8th century Arab work called Kitab Sir al-Haliki, or the Book of the Secret of Creation and the Art of Nature. This work is attributed to Belinus or Pseudo-Apollonius of Tyana, an ancient philosopher. This text may be an Arabic translation of a lost Greek work, though the original has never been found. One famous phrase from the tablet is, "As above, so below." This means that the universe consists of both the physical and the spiritual, and that events in the physical world mirror those in the spiritual world. Basically, if you understand how things work on Earth, you might just figure out the secrets of the cosmos. The text also outlines 7 stages of alchemical transformation. These stages include calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, and coagulation. They each symbolize a step in both physical and spiritual purification and transformation. What's even crazier is that the tablet is also thought to contain the recipe for the Philosopher's Stone, a substance said to have the power to turn base metals into gold and grant immortality. Imagine if that recipe fell into the wrong hands. These esoteric teachings have captivated alchemists and mystics for centuries, and this has invited countless interpretations and debates over their true meaning. Thanks for watching. Is there a creation myth that you believe in? Tell me about it in the comments and remember to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.